Breaking right now. Archetypes is over. That flop failed. Introducing Confessions of a Female Founder. The new podcast by Meghan Markle has just been announced by Lemonada. And Lady Colin Campbell, what I find so amusing about this, and I'm just looking at it for the first time myself, is that she thinks she is a female founder. I mean, literally every business project she touches turns to absolute disaster. But let me tell you what she's had to say about this, Lady C. She says on her Instagram, of course, "I'm so excited to share with you something else I've been working on. Confessions of a Female Founder, my new podcast with Lemonada Media. I've been having candid conversations with amazing women who have turned dreams into realities and scaled small ideas into massively successful businesses. They're opening up, sharing their tips, tricks, and tumbles, and letting me pick their brains as I build out my own business, as ever. It has been absolutely eye-opening, inspiring, and fun, because what's the point if we can't have some fun on this wild adventures? First episode is April the 8th. Lady Colin Campbell, Meghan, Confessions of a Female Founder. What do you think?
Well, I would imagine that she's speaking about the people she's speaking to, as opposed to herself. Because, I mean, what has she founded? Well, she may be a female flounderer, but I don't think she's founded anything except a phony dynasty. So I would imagine she's speaking about the people who she's interviewed, and they're the ones who will be
Look at that.
Another rebrand. Another attempt to convince the public that Meghan Markle is something she is not. We've gone from feminist thought leader in Archetypes to self-styled entrepreneurial guru in Confessions of a Female Founder. The irony is staggering. A founder typically builds something from the ground up, but Meghan has only ever built her brand on borrowed prestige. From the royal family, from Hollywood, from media executives willing to gamble on her name. And let's talk about Lemonada Media, the platform carrying this new show. A niche podcast company trying to ride on celebrity-driven content. Why does this feel like a desperation move for both parties? Perhaps because Meghan's last deal with Spotify ended not with a bang, but with an executive calling her and Harry grifters. Bill Simmons, Spotify's head of podcast innovation, 2023. If Spotify, with its bottomless budget, couldn't make Meghan's podcast a hit, what exactly does Lemonada think will happen here?
What can I say? I wait without bated breath.
And what I think will be most fascinating, Lady C, is probably seeing who hasn't been prepared to sign up. Because at this point, especially, by the way, if you've just seen the way that Mindy Kaling was completely roasted and humiliated on With Love Meghan, right? If you've just gone through all of that, why on earth are you going to be part of this?
Well, of course, Dan, do we know who
Nope.
she's
No
interviewing?
names. Of course, no names.
Well, that's also going to be material, isn't it? Who is she going to be interviewing? And because I mean, on As Ever Meghan, or With Love Meghan, so confusing.
Yes, exactly.
They're also puerile and paltry and unforgettable that you can't even remember the names of the shows.
Yes, well,
But
I've got Lemonada's chief executive talking about this, Lady C. This is what they have had to say. As female founders ourselves, Steph and I are grateful to get a chance to build alongside Meghan the exact podcast we needed when we started Lemonada. And then Lemonada's chief creative officer and co-founder Stephanie Whittles-Wax said, Meghan, sorry, I'm laughing because this is the first time I've seen it. Meghan is such a warm and welcoming person. Sorry, that's just so ridiculous. And you feel that in her interviews. She creates a comfortable space for her guests to bring fascinating personal stories to the table and open up in a way like they haven't before publicly. Listeners can expect conversations that are way more break room than boardroom.
Now, if Meghan Markle were an actual businesswoman, someone who had scaled a startup, led a corporate venture, or innovated in an industry, this podcast might have some credibility. But let's be real, her business ventures have been public relations disasters. The Netflix deal? Underwhelming. The Archetypes podcast? A fizzled-out vanity project. The children's book? It came and went. The digital lifestyle brand American Riviera Orchard that she just trademarked? No actual product in sight. She talks about scaling small ideas into massively successful businesses. Where exactly does she fit into that equation? The most successful thing she has ever done is marry a prince and monetize his surname. And if you think I'm being harsh, consider this. What tangible industry influence or market disruption has she caused? Unlike Reese Witherspoon, who built Hello Sunshine into a powerhouse, or Kim Kardashian, who turned Skims into a billion-dollar empire, Meghan has no track record in business. Yet, she's positioning herself as an expert? What's next? Confessions of a Royal Expert featuring Meghan lecturing historians on monarchy?
Meghan is such a warm and welcoming person. Lady C? Does this woman have her beer goggles on? Her rose-tinted glasses have been worn?
Meghan the Kerr's first cousin, another Kerr. It's ridiculous. I think, though, Dan, we need to wait and see what she comes up with. But if it's typical Meghan, it's going to be dull and boring because Meghan never manages to get anything of interest out. She's the sort of person who kills interest. She doesn't elicit it. She doesn't invite it because it's all about her. And it's all about her looking good and her being as wonderful as she thinks she is. And everybody must ratify that rather vain self-belief. And so I will be interested to see, because when she did Archetypes, of course, she made absolutely sure that none of the people whom her production team interviewed, and she then simply jumped in and asked the questions afterwards, but she made sure that she elicited nothing of any interest from anybody, and she had some rather interesting women on, but she's a bad interviewer because she doesn't know.
Indeed, and we saw that in With Love Meghan time and again, didn't we? Actually, she's not good at having these conversations. So the woman from Lemonade saying she's a warm and welcoming person who gets lots out of her interview subjects. Well, look, time will tell. But that has certainly not been the experience of any of her other projects. The other thing that's interesting to me, Lady C, about this is the scaling down since Archetypes. It's almost as if Meghan is accepting, I'm not going to have a mainstream hit. I'm not going to get in the charts. I'm no longer working with Spotify because it might be a worthy idea, but Lady C, there's no mass market interest in a niche business podcast for so-called female founders, is there?
Now here's the real question. Who is actually going to sign up to be a guest on this podcast? Because we've seen what happens when celebrities attach themselves to Meghan Markle. Things go south fast. Serena Williams? Ghosted. Jessica Mulrooney? Publicly distanced. Oprah? Suspiciously silent ever since that bombshell interview. And let's not forget Mindy Kaling, who was humiliated in Meghan's With Love, Meghan documentary. Mindy was practically used as a case study for Meghan's narrative about single women being sad and desperate, who would willingly sign up for round 2 of that treatment. Then there's the elephant in the room. Does anyone actually trust Meghan Markle to hold an honest, substantive conversation? Because if her past interviews are anything to go by, every discussion will be about her. Expect lots of when I was a working royal, when Harry and I had to escape, and when I faced struggles that no one else could understand. all conveniently staged to be relatable yet carefully curated to protect her fragile image.
Well, whenever there is interest in a niche podcaster, I mean, because say Joe Rogan started as a niche podcaster and look at what he's achieved. So, it's if you are of interest and if you know how to plumb the depths with your guests, then you will go on to be big. Meghan has started big and is now much smaller. That's a retrograde direction to be in, and it tells you something about her abilities. And so I have no great deal of hope that this lemonade is going to be anything but lemonade squeezed with Meghan lemons, I think, and without any sugar to actually sweeten it.
Exactly. Let's just be honest about it. It will be a very, very sour listen. But Lady C, the figures are in, and we can now say categorically that With Love Meghan has been a disaster. So firstly, from Samba TV, that reports it hasn't matched the blockbuster numbers of Harry and Meghan. In its first 6 days, the lifestyle series drew 526,000 US households, while Harry and Meghan pulled in a staggering 2.1 million households in just 4. And Brittany, our friend from the Royal News Network, has been crunching the numbers overall on this. And she writes that the much maligned and mocked series drew an audience a quarter of the size of Harry and Meghan, and says, though it's the couple's second best performing title, there has been an obvious decrease in their audience size. As a result, she reports it's likely that Netflix is strongly considering whether or not it is worth continuing their reportedly $100 million relationship if their most talked about show is still 75% behind their most successful. And she makes the point, Lady C, that all Harry and Meghan have to sell is the royal family. And she says if King Charles and Prince William aren't worried yet, they should be. Perhaps Harry should be as well, as Meghan's best bet for a massive paycheck at this point is probably a divorce. Tell all. And
this is where the real strategy kicks in. Lemonade Media isn't just launching a podcast, they are selling an illusion. Their executives claim Meghan is warm and welcoming. But ask any former friend, employee, or ex-royal staffer, and you'll hear a different story altogether. Numerous reports, The Times, Daily Mail, even former palace aides, detail how she left staff broken and bullied. So, is this warmth the real trait, or just good PR? More importantly, who is the target audience here? Because the mainstream public isn't fooled anymore. Even Harry and Meghan's most loyal fan base, those who tuned into archetypes for royal gossip, are losing interest. Streaming numbers have shown that after the first few episodes, people checked out. The novelty wore off. If Lemonade thinks this podcast will reinvent Meghan's image, they clearly haven't learned from Spotify's expensive misstep.
And then actually we have the top 10, and you can see, Lady C, that it debuted at the number 10 slot. And it's been beaten by quite a not that well-known British show called Toxic Town, also beaten by a 1-hour comedy special and a live WWE Raw. The irony is that storming Netflix at the moment, Lady C, is Mindy Karlin's new show, which is quite ironic, isn't it? Given that actually she should probably never have gone on With Love Meghan in the first place. But what do you make of that contention from Brittany from the Royal News Network that actually this failure is going to make it much more likely that Meghan is going to have to start dishing and sort of trying to destroy the royal family again, because that's the only thing that seems to work for her from a commercial perspective?
Well, it's the only thing that worked initially with Oprah and with the Netflix show, that there's nothing really that Meghan has to dish that anybody would believe, because had Meghan seriously had stuff on the royals, she would have been able to pressurize them into getting half in, half out. So the fact that she was never able to exert pressure initially, when it really counted, and when she would have been able to make the move to California, and she would have been able to have commercial enterprises that would not have resulted in the necessity for her to trash the family. She had one of two options. She was going to convince the late Queen that this was a good way to proceed, or she was going to convince the Queen that the Queen had to allow her to be half in, half out, because she had blackmail material. Well, she doesn't have blackmail material. She's never had blackmail material. She's come out with very effective but ineffectual accusations. You know that she, in the Oprah interview, that one member of the royal family had once commented on the possibility of Archie's skin color. This was before his birth, which in fact in mixed race families is a perfectly standard conversation to have. So that she was putting a negative spin upon something that was perfectly normal.
Here's the problem. You can't inspire what you don't understand. Meghan Markle talking about entrepreneurship is like someone who inherited a trust fund giving a TED talk on bootstrapping. Every opportunity she's ever had has been handed to her, either through royal privilege, Hollywood connections, or media executives betting on the Sussex name. That's not business acumen. That's just leveraging other people's power and influence. And let's be clear, this isn't just skepticism, it's historical precedent. Look at the Sussexes' business record so far. The Spotify deal, terminated. The Netflix deal, underperforming, with projects quietly shelved. The book deals, Harry's Spare sold well, but Meghan's children's book? A forgettable drop in the publishing ocean. The Invictus Games documentary, a success, but note, it had nothing to do with Meghan. The charity work, Archer's impact? Mostly PR fluff with little to show in terms of tangible results. So when Lemonade Media suggests that Meghan is going to help listeners learn about scaling businesses, the real lesson is this. If you want to succeed like Meghan Markle, forget innovation. Just marry well, play the victim, and cash in on controversy.
And that's the high watermark, followed by the accusations through amid scabies in Holland that it's the King and the Princess of Wales who are the racists. She has nothing else. Had she had anything, she would be half in, half out. So anything she comes up with now is going to be as basically paltry as what she's come up with, which had a massive effect at the time, because people actually thought, well, there might be merit to it. But that's at a time that the public, not only in the United Kingdom, but all over the rest of the world, thought that Meghan was somebody who was reliable, trustworthy, that she had been accepted by the British royal family, and that she was leaving, according to her statement, to pursue independence, financial independence in the United States of America, and that she wanted to remain half in, half out as a half-time member of the royal family, doing jobs for the Queen and the Commonwealth. Let's remember what her original statement said. That's what it said. So all the nonsense that she's come up with since about how badly she was treated, had she been as badly treated as she lied and said she was, she wouldn't have wanted to remain half in, half out. She wouldn't have wanted to continue to be a working member of the royal family half the time. So her very actions and inactions show that there's really nothing that she can come up with that is going to be credible, because had it been credible, she'd have played the card some time ago. I'm not saying she's not going to lie, and I'm not saying she's not going to come up with other rubbish the way she has in the last 5 years. But every time she comes up with rubbish, it is rubbished, and she is exposed as the liar and the fraud and the race-baiting, attention-seeking, sociopathic narcissist that her behavior shows us that she is.
What we are witnessing isn't just a podcast launch. It's another desperate attempt to remain relevant. Meghan and Harry's strategy over the past few years has been a cycle of reinvention. First, the royal victim narrative, Oprah, Netflix, Spare. This was their golden era of public sympathy, but people quickly grew tired of the endless complaints. Then, the corporate power couple attempt, Spotify, Netflix, philanthropy deals. That failed because they lacked substance. Now, Meghan pivots to business guru, a field where she has no credibility. It's a strategy built on trial and error, except each failure erodes more public trust. And unlike Hollywood, where reinvention is expected, business requires results. If you claim to be a successful entrepreneur, you actually have to build something that lasts. Right now, Meghan's business track record consists of abandoned projects, PR scandals, and short-lived partnerships. And let's not forget Harry. While Meghan attempts to sell herself as a business-savvy media mogul, Harry is floating between vague mental health initiatives and awkward self-help speeches. The man who once had a real platform with Invictus is now making wellness videos for BetterUp, a company so mired in Silicon Valley elitism that its own workers complain about exploitation. It's ironic. Harry talks about mental health while cashing checks from a company accused of underpaying its own coaches.
Oh, indeed. And the thing is, Netflix are crazy because they have such a strong brand. Why are they allowing it to be dragged down by everything you point out? And actually, there are also, Lady C, new figures in for Polo, Harry's show. And again, the Royal News Network has crunched the numbers on this and revealed it was a disastrous flop, managed only a measly 600,000 views for December. And the other series, Live to Lead and Heart of Invictus, did not even make the chart whatsoever. And when you actually really dig down into what they're paying for, Lady C, it's astonishing because Brittany says, in fact, for the whole of 2024, they only had a grand total of, wait for it, 3.3 million shows for all 4 of their shows up to that point. Harry and Meghan allegedly have a deal worth $100 million and yet could only scrounge up 3.3 million views for an entire year. I mean, Lady C, most Netflix shows get that in their first week. So it feels just astonishing that Netflix would go on with this. I mean, maybe they're hoping to make a lot of money from the products that Meghan's planning to sell.
I gather that that's not feasible, that in fact there's grave concern at Netflix that the investment in that direction is going to be as abortive as everything else has been. I would not be surprised if Netflix...
Let's be honest. The only people who stand to gain from this podcast are Lemonade Media and Meghan Markle herself. If this fails, it'll be just another notch in her long list of abandoned projects. But if it gets traction, even briefly, it allows her to claim legitimacy in the business world, despite having done absolutely nothing to earn it.
I mean, depending on how desperate Meghan is, Netflix is going to be able to get her for either little or virtually nothing. Now, I have to say, my information has always been that the figure of $100 million was never, ever going to fly accurately. No. And, you know, that would have, that they would have earned having been given production.
Exactly. If you give us this hit series, yeah.
So that's the press keep on saying $100 million. And evidently, Harry and Meghan are the people who said $100 million initially, to show everybody how the benchmark for their value is really, you know, they were benchmarking their value by pitching it very high. And I think the likelihood, I'm told, is Netflix is either going to just let the contract die, or it will suit them and Meghan to have a renewed contract that is going to be at maybe 100th of what the other one was. But that way, Meghan saves face, and they have their all in terms of other potential projects related to the royals, that keeping Meghan and Harry involved might be a clever business move. But I gather it's quite possible that will just fall down the wayside, and they'll just do a Pontius Pilate. But let's see what happens. I understand that it's all up for discussion at the moment, and that there's nothing's been decided yet. But the harbingers are not good for Meghan and Harry to have. Certainly, they'll never have a renewed contract that was as financially beneficial to them.
And let's talk about Lemonade Media for a second. This is a company that thrives on woke, celebrity-driven content. Their entire model is about selling activism and identity politics as entertainment. So, they see Meghan not as an entrepreneur, but as a brandable persona, one that they can mold into a feel-good women in businesses narrative, regardless of the facts.
As the previous one, because they have been a disaster in terms of productivity and profitability where Netflix is concerned.
And I think Limonada is about to experience exactly the same thing with, what's it called again? Confessions of a Female Founder. Lady C, I have a question for you from one of our viewers, actually, Patricia, who emailed me directly wanting your wisdom on quite a controversial area, actually, and it's certainly something that I've picked up from the outspoken audience quite a lot of concern about, shall we say. So Patricia wrote to me to say, I was quite concerned last week when it was revealed on Twitter that the king had hosted Ramadan celebrations in Windsor Castle. Father Calvin Robinson also tweeted about this. As a Christian, I find it really troubling. Islam is not compatible with Christianity or the values of the West. Can you please ask Lady C what she knows about the king's links to Islam and how this affects his role as monarch, being head of the church and defender of the faith?
Oh, well, Dan, thanks for dropping me in the wasp's nest.
Sorry, I didn't give you any warning about that, did I?
No, you didn't, naughty boy, but it's okay, I'll still love you. And I'll answer it. The king is the supreme governor of the Church of England. So to that extent, he has an official capacity in this country, which has a state religion in terms of Christianity.
So will this podcast be a hit? Well, if history tells us anything, it will have a strong initial PR push, a handful of high-profile guest appearances, and then silence. Because just like archetypes, just like the Netflix accusaries, and just like every other Meghan Markle vanity project, the novelty will wear off. And when it does, the excuses will begin. The media was against us. People didn't want to hear women's voices. It was never about numbers. It was about impact. Translation? Another failed project, another attempt to rewrite the narrative, and another reason to blame the critics instead of looking in the mirror.
He, like his late father, Prince Philip, he is interested in the spiritual aspect. And as the late Pope Benedict XVI made clear, if you are a devout Catholic or a devout Anglican, you have far more in common with other believers than you do with non-believers. I have no great deal of discomfort with the king's interest in fostering respect for other faiths that lead to God.
Now that we've dissected the absurdity of this podcast launch, let's talk about the future. Because if there's one thing predictable about Meghan and Harry, it's their next move in the cycle of reinvention. So what's next on the agenda? Let's break it down. The victim pivot. Once the numbers come in and this podcast doesn't perform as expected, the excuses will follow. Meghan and her media allies will claim that powerful forces were working against her. Maybe she'll blame sexism. Maybe it'll be the toxic British presses again. Maybe we'll even get another Netflix special titled Unheard, the silencing of Meghan Markle. Because if there's one thing Meghan excels at, it's making failure look like oppression. The next groundbreaking business venture. When this podcast flops, expect another business launch. Meghan will try something else, maybe a beauty line, a wellness brand, or even a female empowerment conference series. After all, she's already trademarked American Riviera Orchard for home and lifestyle products. Because nothing screams self-made entrepreneur like slapping your name on a product and pretending you built it from scratch. The Sussexes' next tell-all interview. And if all else fails, there's always the emergency eject button, another headline-grabbing interview. Maybe another sit-down with Oprah, if she even picks up their calls at this point, or a glossy feature in The Cut, Vogue, or Variety, where Meghan will once again speak her truth about how hard it is to be a misunderstood royal-turned-mogul. The script writes itself.
I understand that there has been an awful lot of concern because of what Charles did in terms of Ramadan. Well, Charles also, the monarch, I should say, always on Maundy Thursday, which comes after the beginning of Ramadan, obviously, because Maundy Thursday is the day before Good Friday, and that's not coming for another month or so. The monarch always gives alms on Maundy Thursday. So there's something that has always been in the royal calendar in terms of Christianity, and in particular the Church of England. He is also, as a result of being the monarch, he is also the head of the Church of Scotland. So that's something else again. And the Church of Scotland is not the same as the Church of England to people who know anything about this. He also is something of an ecumenicalist. He has excellent relations with the Catholic Church, with the papacy. The apostolic pronuncio is always involved with the royal family. I see, and the king also has an involvement with Jewry. He's very in touch with the chief rabbi.
Look, at the end of the day, this isn't just about one failed podcast or one poorly executed PR stunt. It's about credibility. Meghan and Harry have spent the past 4 years burning bridges, alienating allies, and trading on a royal name they claim to resent. The result? They've lost the public's trust. People are no longer buying what they are selling. Even their stanchest defenders are running out of excuses. And this podcast, this laughable attempt to position Meghan as a business expert, is just another sign of their diminishing influence. Because when you have to keep reinventing yourself every 6 months, that's not strategy. That's desperation. So the real question isn't whether this podcast will succeed. It won't. The real question is, how long until the world moves on completely?
So I think if you bear all of that in mind, it's a lot less ominous than it appears to be. Unfortunately, the kickoff of Ramadan is the first. So
okay, well, that makes me feel better. That makes me feel better, and hopefully we'll put Patricia's mind at rest too.
Can I also just say one more thing?
Please.
That if he's going to be, he needs to be promoting all the main faiths or none, except the Church of England. He needs to promote all of them. He needs to hop in visibly with Jewry, with Islam, with Hindus, with Buddhists, you name it. The Catholics, the Greek Orthodox. And remember, his father was born Greek Orthodox. And he also every year used to go to I think it's Mount Athos. He would go on a retreat every single year to Mount Athos, which is a Greek Orthodox monastery. So he's very spiritual, and I think people have slightly misunderstood what his aim is. And I actually, being a believer in God, think, as the Dalai Lama said, stick to your religion. Wherever you're from, stick to your religion, because it's all an attempt to understand God. So I will leave it at that.
Very well put, Lady C. I just wanted to end today with a little bit of a palate cleanser, because we saw Catherine, the Princess of Wales, in all her splendour at the Commonwealth Day service. And I think that was such a wonderful moment for everyone. She's looking like a movie star again. And of course, just a few months ago, she was suffering from cancer. So that was very lovely to see. And then I'm also particularly taken by this wonderful video of Prince William and a woman with flaming red hair. And I think very often you can see what a royal is like by their interactions with the public. And this one was particularly special because the woman was struggling to take the photo and William was so patient and made sure she got her selfie. Let's have a little watch.
How are you doing? Hello. It's fantastic. I wish I had hair like that. Amazing.
Is that William?
I've lost a chance. I've done it a few times.
Is this him? Yes, him. Let's go.
No, you didn't take it. No, there you go. Press the button. You got it. You got it.
See, Lady C, you didn't take it, he said. Just make sure you press the button. Wasn't that sweet?
He's a nice guy. And Catherine's a nice girl. They're nice people. And I have to say, Harry used to be a very nice person. In situations like that, Harry's still, by and large, a nice person. It's Meghan who's always the problem, But I think we should end on a positive note. You're quite right there. Catherine looks wonderful.
I just loved these pictures. I just loved them. I thought, and there were all of the rumors, weren't there? Oh, is Catherine going to return to royal duties? And then do you remember Roy and Nika in the Sunday Times saying, oh, she's never going to tell people about her clothes and she's only going to wear dark outfits? And it's like, just calm down, let her get back to work. And she is back to being the perfect princess, and it is lovely to see. And Lady C, it's always lovely to see you. Make sure you sign up to Lady Colin Campbell, subscribe to her YouTube channel for much, much more analysis of all the big royal stories of the day, and so much more too.
At some point, even the most carefully curated illusions collapse under the weight of reality. And that's exactly what's happening with Meghan and Harry. This podcast is just another hollow attempt to reshape Meghan's image, to convince the world that she's something she's not, an accomplished entrepreneur, a respected thought leader, a self-made success. But the problem is, people aren't buying it anymore. The Spotify debacle proved they can't hold an audience. The Netflix projects showed that their appeal is fleeting. The business ventures highlight their lack of real strategy. And now, this latest reinvention attempt is just another desperate grasp at relevance. The world isn't against them. The media isn't out to destroy them. The only thing ruining Meghan and Harry's credibility is Meghan and Harry. If they truly wanted success, they would have done the work, built something real, delivered value, created something beyond their own personal narrative of grievance. But instead, they've chosen the easy route, celebrity without substance, influence without accountability, victimhood without consequence. And that's why this won't work. Not because of haters. Not because of the British press. But because the world has moved on. And the only ones who haven't realized it yet are Meghan and Harry themselves.
Breaking right now, she's done it again. Meghan Markle has ripped off her new podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder, from this woman. And it is particularly shameful because this woman is exactly the sort of person who you'd think Meghan Markle would want to back. Katie Matei, young Irish woman, entrepreneur, who literally launched the show Confessions of a Female Founder in October 2023. Here's the video.
Guys, my name's Katie. I'm founder and owner of Vale Street. So excited to kick off today's video, and I want to give you guys a grand welcome to episode 1 of Confessions of a Female Founder, tell all series where I share my experiences and advice as a 23-year-old entrepreneur. I've been in business since the age of 16.
Angela Levin, our royal mastermind, joins me now. Angela, this has to be her lowest blow yet, her biggest rip-off yet, because this poor woman, Katie Matei, who came up with Confessions of a Female Founder, has actually posted on Instagram overnight saying, what is happening and how did I get dragged into this? In other words, Meghan hasn't even approached her and said, can I use this name? Can I give you some money to take your intellectual copyright? Nope, she's just gone and done it. And I feel that, oh, it's so shameless.
Well, it is. It's hugely shameless. But it does tell you that she never learns. She never wants to actually acknowledge that she's made a mistake. We all make mistakes. Say, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I must have dreamt it or something like that. She couldn't give a moment's thought to anybody else.
If you thought Meghan Markle's controversies were behind her, think again. Tonight, we uncover the shocking allegations that the Duchess of Sussex has once again landed herself in the middle of an intellectual property scandal. According to reports, Meghan's newly announced podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder, bears an uncanny resemblance, some say a blatant rip-off, of an existing show launched by a young Irish entrepreneur, Katie Matei, back in October 2023. Now, critics are asking, is this just a coincidence, or is there a pattern of Meghan taking ideas that aren't hers?
And that is Meghan, exactly what she's like. She's a monster. She couldn't care about anyone. And that's what she does. She just takes it, and that's it. Never mind, it's stolen, actually, isn't it? It's absolutely stolen. She couldn't care about that at all.
I mean, Angela, I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. It's completely stolen. I mean, what, we're meant to believe that Meghan didn't see this or her team didn't see this, yet it's exactly the same name. And as you say, Angela, if this was a one-off mistake and she admitted it, then maybe we'd be okay with it. But her track record of rip-offs is just constant. I mean, actually, we spoke about it earlier in the week, and we'll be putting up a video at the weekend of you completely exposing her ripping off Martha Stewart's one pot pasta video in With Love Meghan. So unfortunately, Meghan Markle doesn't have an original idea in her own head, but I just think this one in particular is so shameful because she claims to care about young women launching their own businesses, yet she is prepared to rip this young woman off. Now, what should happen now, Angela, is there should be an apology and money should exchange hands. But do you think that will happen?
No, she just pretends it's not happening. We have seen for 5 years now that if she makes a mistake or she's very rude or, says something or behaves somewhere, and it is absolutely not accepted. She just closes the door in her mind. You don't see her for a few days, then up she pops, couldn't care less, off she goes. Sometimes people say that she's very upset and she's been crying, but I don't think so. I think she's so hardened that she couldn't care less because she's not trying to improve at all with anybody, to anybody. And I think it's absolutely appalling. And when she's being on, different programs, she couldn't care less about anything there. Nothing.
Let's rewind for a second. After the Spotify disaster, where Meghan and Harry's multi-million-dollar deal collapsed due to lackluster content and poor execution, the Duchess was on the hunt for a fresh comeback. And suddenly, Confessions of a Female Founder was born. But here's where things get suspicious. Katie Mattei, a 23-year-old entrepreneur from Ireland, had already launched a show under the exact same name 6 months earlier. A show that was growing in popularity among young female business owners. So, is this just a massive PR blunder, or was Meghan hoping that no one would notice? According to The Sun, Meghan announced her new show just weeks after launching her first business, an endeavor that many critics already claim is built on buzzwords and superficial empowerment rather than genuine innovation. And it gets worse.
I think she is just revolting. And that's why Harry is in such a state, because he can't understand what he should do next. He loves her, part of her, but, she's the sort of woman that you can't ever really say, well, don't say that about me, don't do this about me, don't allow me only 3 minutes in your 8 instant in your work. I'd like to be a bit more. He doesn't dare. So that's what I've said for a long time, that he's scared of her because she couldn't care less about anyone. And as for the royal family, she would love to do it. I read actually this morning that somebody said that she couldn't care less about them. And her ideal is to hurt them in any way that she could. And this is even beyond that, isn't it?
Yes.
For a young girl like that, who's been very hard. And
a young female founder. Yep. Exactly.
Thinking about what to do, and yet she couldn't care less. And we see that because she says one thing and she does another. The hypocrisy is just extraordinary. But I think it's now coming to a head where she's going ridiculously around. I mean, she's doing one thing after another because she wants to be seen and heard, and she adores Instagram. It's like her best friend now, and she's going to talk and talk and talk. She can't stop. And she won't let anybody else stop her. This picture of her, she looks as if she's from a sort of, there's been a terrible effect. And she looks very dangerous. And don't come after me. Look, it's very, very hard, her face.
This isn't the first time Meghan has been accused of lifting ideas. In 2018, royal watchers noted that her wedding dress bore a striking resemblance to the gown worn by Princess Angela of Liechtenstein in 2000. Her cookbook, Together, released in 2018, faced allegations of being heavily inspired by previous charity cookbooks. In 2022, her Spotify podcast, Archetypes, was slammed for featuring recycled themes already explored by better-established hosts. And let's not forget her Netflix docuseries, which many claimed was a remix of content from past royal documentaries, just with Meghan and Harry at the center. So, is this just another example of Meghan Markle riding on the coattails of someone else's hard work?
I am the queen. I am the one who owns this.
Don't mess with me.
Don't exactly. Don't mess with me. She looks like that. Now, if you wanted to be positive and saying, I'm talking to a lot of girls, a lot of women, and we're going to talk about all things, and I'm going to learn lots of things, then you expect some sort of smile, some sort of enthusiasm. This is definitely don't mess with me.
Big time, which is the new era, isn't it? But my goodness, Angela, the reaction to this podcast, whoa, it was really strong. The Spectator headlined their coverage, Does Meghan Need Another Podcast? And their writer, Alistair Larman, said, success, Winston Churchill supposedly once remarked, is the ability to go from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. If this is indeed the case, then Meghan Markle's 2025 thus far represents a remarkable series of triumphs and victories. Alex Phillips, very good, wasn't it? Alex Phillips, our friend, a regular here on Outspoken, posted on X, The only thing you've found, speaking to Meghan Markle, is a mentally ill prince with mummy issues you manipulate. And the Royal News Network, Angela, she actually changed the title of the show and said, fixed it. Meghan Markle should title her show Confessions of a Grifter. Now that I would listen to. According to Taz, another regular here said, oh no, please no, there is not enough Advil in the world. Why not do a podcast called Confessions of a Femme Fatale? Get your bingo cards ready, folks. Talks over guests, anecdotes about her life with every guest, swipes at the royal family, lies about her childhood.
Here's where things get even more interesting. As reported by Newsweek, the backlash over Meghan's podcast exploded within hours of her announcement. Yet, Lemonade Media, the company producing her show, has remained silent, refusing to acknowledge the controversy. Meanwhile, Katie Mattery posted a cryptic message on Instagram, stating, "What is happening? How did I get dragged into this?" Suggesting she had no prior knowledge of Meghan's plans. This begs the question. Did Meghan Markle knowingly take this podcast name, assuming that a young entrepreneur wouldn't have the resources to fight back? Is this another calculated move by Meghan to stay in the headlines, even if it means negative press? And most importantly, will there be legal consequences?
And Angela, what was quite astonishing about this, and again, it was pointed out by Brittany at the Royal News Network, there's only 8 episodes. Brittany says that's pathetic. Wonder if she had a tough time getting guests and that's why the number is so small.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, she's not going to listen to any of those 8 women. We saw with Spotify that people weren't allowed to have a conversation. What she feels anywhere really is to tell them about herself. She's not interested. She might ask a quick question. She doesn't know how to interview. She doesn't know how to ask questions. It's, I'm telling you about me. Then when she's traveling and she went to see a whole load of children, she said, and I'm sure you want to know all about how I did this. And I was very good at school and I told everybody what they should do and how they should do it. She feels that we all get enormous pleasure from knowing everything she does and how she does it. We don't, but she won't recognize that. She's not interested. But it's a waste of time talking to these ladies. She doesn't even allow them to say very much because she'll be in the second sentence and she'll be telling them all about her and how dreadful it was and how awful it was. And she was so upset that she struggled through and she's made it. And, oh, she's so thrilled and you have to do what I'm doing, which is keep going. Oh, really? I think she's one of the most hated women in the world now. She was the most famous. And now I think she's the most hated because you go through loads of people and I can't find anybody who likes her, who thinks, unless she pays them, but unless she thinks that she's all right, she's not.
Now, let's get into the hard facts. If Meghan Markle genuinely didn't know that Confessions of a Female Founder already existed, then surely her team would have done their due diligence, right? Well, here's where things get suspicious. Katie Mattery's podcast was widely available online. A simple Google search would have shown the original Confessions of a Female Founder series. In fact, Mattery had been actively promoting it on Instagram, LinkedIn, and even small business forums. Exactly the kind of places a PR team would research before launching a new brand. Trademark concerns? Meghan should have known better. A check of trademark databases shows no official claim from either party on the podcast name, which means Meghan's team likely knew it was unprotected and pounced on it. But here's the kicker. This could backfire massively. If Mattery can prove she had public use of the name first, Meghan could be forced to rename the show or pay damages. The Meghan Markle coincidence pattern continues. Back in 2020, Meghan and Harry launched their Archual brand, only for it to be revealed that a charity in the US already had a nearly identical name, forcing them into legal complications. And let's not forget that Meghan's first children's book, The Bench, bore striking similarities to a 2018 book called The Boy on the Bench by Corinne Avarice. So are we supposed to believe that this is just another accident? According to a report from the New York Post, Meghan didn't even acknowledge Matty's podcast in her announcement, leading critics to wonder, was this a rushed project, or was she hoping no one would notice?
I'm going to get a load of letters from and emails from all her friends and her paid friends.
Yeah,
but never mind.
they're a diminishing number, Angela, because look, it's really interesting that you point out the reaction across the world, because what's fascinating to me is how much negativity there is now emanating from the United States of America and Canada. And I wanted to share a couple of examples of you about that I've picked up over the past 24 hours, Angela, from very highly respected people, actually, across the political spectrum too. So Gad Sad.
Not people who want to be unkind.
No.
But they can't stand her. Yeah.
I mean, Gad Sad, for example, he posted, "It is almost impossible to imagine someone who is more vacuous in her delusional narcissism than this degenerate." And then this line I thought was very funny, Angela. "Her wife, Harry, is clueless."
I know.
He's very clever. And then actually, this is more interesting though, because as you say, it's from people who don't want to be negative. Mary Catherine Ham, she's a Democrat in America and widely considered to be a very kind person.
The response online has been brutal. Twitter has been on fire, with users posting side-by-side comparisons of Meghan's new podcast and Matty's original. One user wrote, "Meghan Markle stealing ideas again? At this point, it's a pattern, not a mistake." Instagram commenters flooded Matty's page, expressing support and outrage. One user wrote, "Sue her, Katie. You had it first." Even royal biographer Angela Levin weighed in, calling it another shameless stunt in an interview with GB News. And the most damning reaction? Spotify exec Bill Simmons, who previously called Meghan and Harry grifters, has remained silent. Some insiders believe this could be his way of letting the controversy blow up without coming to Meghan's defense. Meanwhile, Matty herself has only posted a cryptic story on Instagram, saying, "The truth always comes out." So, what happens next?
And she posted, "Meghan Markle violates my press release rule. Each person only gets so many press releases allotted in a lifetime. Graduations, marriages, divorces, babies, job changes. Other people only have so much capacity to celebrate or be excited about your stuff. This is why a third wedding announcement, or say a fourth baby, might get less fanfare than a first. Fair enough, you have stuff going on. The modern social media era has exacerbated the press release problem, as everyone has made a press release of everything. Your gender reveals, your 100k followers, your therapy breakthrough, your second gender ID change, and third sexual proclivity announcement. At some point, people just can't care. And at another point, they get annoyed you're insisting they care. We are on at least Meghan's 6th or 7th public reinvention at this point, her 5th or so product launch. Each an uncomfortable false start, followed by a period of highly paid, inauthentic, and unimpressive work. There are too many press releases. Many people were at can't care anymore a while ago and might not have progressed to so annoyed, except her brand cohesive, vertically synergistic, corporately required to recoup ubiquity for each launch leads us to a new cycle of wait. She's launching another podcast, bespoke jam, company, logo, ethos, last name, thought, leadership, mothership. Too many press releases.
But
Angela, doesn't she have it spot on?
The other side of it is that all these announcements, but they don't happen. We're still, if you're interested, waiting to be able to buy one of the things she's made, the jam or the tea. You still can't get it. They say now it's in April, but people have been waiting since last March. It's sort of ironic and ridiculous, and makes you not know anything that's going on. But I think that's what she wants. She wants to muddle us all up, so we can't work her out. She's just so amazing that we can't actually analyze it properly. But why do you do things when you know that nobody can buy it, nobody can comment on it? If you want to sell something, you want to do it that will make the person very excited at the same time as they're listening to you, so they can try and get it. Here, you're never going anywhere. You're in a puddle, not going anywhere. It's a sort of ridiculous way of behaving, but she's got to have it. It's like, she's starving for as much attention as possible. And now she's got Instagram. Nobody can stop her. No one.
If Meghan's team knowingly copied Matty's podcast name and concept, there could be serious legal trouble ahead. Legal experts say Matty could file a lawsuit based on unfair competition laws, which protect small businesses from being overshadowed by big corporations, intellectual property infringement, if she can prove she was using the name first, reputational damage, if she can argue that Meghan's podcast hurts her brand. But here's where things get even juicier. If Matty fights back, Meghan could be forced to pay a hefty settlement. And if this turns into a full-blown court case, it could expose internal emails from Meghan's team, emails that could prove whether they knew about Matty's show all along. Before you go anywhere, stick around, because this story isn't just about a stolen podcast name. It could be part of a bigger problem.
No, indeed, because we get to see the real Meghan. Now, Angela, by contrast, you see true class. And I think true class is really developing at the moment with this relationship between the Beckhams, Victoria Beckham, and King Charles and Camilla. But there is a fascinating side story to all of this, because of course Camilla and Victoria Beckham were at Buckingham Palace this week, and we've got some footage actually of them having a lovely conversation, which we can take a little look at. But there's an undertone to this, isn't there, Angela? Because it suits both parties. Because remember, the Beckhams were previously allied to the Sussexes until they realised just how awful Meghan was. And now they've become such a big part of King Charles and Camilla's court. They're doing a lot of stuff together.
Yes. I always think that David Beckham is after having a really good sort of Sir David.
Oh, he wants the knighthood more than anything in the world. Anything in the world.
And I think that they're both working towards that as much as they possibly can, laughing at their jokes, also going to have bees and honey. If you're doing it, so am I, so we've got this in common as well. And I think, not that they're cunning, but I think they've got that ambition that it will work very well. I mean, Camilla, as I know her, is with her for over a year, is that she's always charming, but you can't make her say something or do something she doesn't really want to. She's very strong. She sees right through you, and she knows the time to be very polite and talk to you a little bit, or she knows just to say a quick sentence and go on to someone else.
Why did Spotify drop Meghan and Harry so quickly? Did Netflix lose faith in their storytelling abilities? And most importantly, does Meghan Markle have a creativity problem? Let's step back for a moment. Meghan's confessions of a female founder controversy isn't just a one-off scandal. It fits into a much bigger pattern of failure that has followed her from Spotify to Netflix to Hollywood's inner circles.
All done beautifully, seamlessly. But it is interesting now that they're everywhere. They were having a dinner there, a sort of Italian dinner, weren't they, at Highgrove a few weeks ago. So they're there whenever they're needed. And I think they are needed because they're attractive and they look nice. But I think David sort of taking off a lot of his clothes and having pictures of him with all this, ink all over him, I don't think that's ideal.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because they certainly feel like it's a coup, having secured the support of the Beckhams. Because remember, Angela, the big falling out between the Beckhams and Harry and Meghan was over the fact, and it's just so preposterous, that Meghan tried to claim that Victoria Beckham was leaking stories, which is just, I mean, trust me, I covered the Beckhams for years and years and years and years. There's just no way Victoria Beckham did that.
No, but also, the other thing was that...
And here's the bombshell. Sources inside the industry say that Meghan Markle's reputation in Hollywood is crumbling. Spotify's Bill Simmons called her a grifter. Netflix has dramatically scaled back its projects with her. Big-name Hollywood executives, who once saw her as a fresh face, are now reportedly keeping their distance. And now, with this latest controversy, it seems no one wants to defend her.
Meghan said that they were telling lies about them, and also they wouldn't let her have free jackets and coats and dresses. She was very cross. She thought that Victoria should give her free things, and I don't know whether she did or she didn't, but, you know, why should she? She's making her living. But she was very cross that she was going to make her pay things. There we are. There he is. You know, I think actually if you're trying to get the right side of the king, you shouldn't be dressing like that. And also keeping his legs open. That's it. Yeah. Not quite well behaved.
I have a feeling there'll be quite a few people watching, Angela, who might disagree with you on that and say, keep it going, David. Keep taking those clothes off. But yeah, there you go. Look, the thing is, I know the real David Beckham. The real David Beckham isn't some nice guy. He's not doing this for altruistic reasons. He wants his knighthood. I read all of the Becky Leak emails. He doesn't do this stuff for charity. He thinks it's terrible that Catherine Jenkins got an honour and that he didn't when she had been exposed for taking drugs, or she had revealed that she had taken drugs many, many years ago. So, look, I see right through what David Beckham's doing, but I do think this is a real victory for the royal family because they secured the glamour of the Beckhams, and the Beckhams will have nothing to do with Harry and Meghan now. Nothing to do with them, Angela.
In 2020, Meghan and Harry signed a $20 million deal with Spotify for their Archetypes podcast. By 2023, the deal was cancelled after just one season. And here's the damning part. Archetypes ranked well initially, but quickly lost listeners. Reports surfaced that Meghan's team was hiring outside writers to create the content. Spotify execs were reportedly frustrated with the lack of effort. According to an explosive report by the Wall Street Journal, Meghan and Harry were expected to produce multiple series, but they simply didn't deliver. And this brings us back to Confessions of a Female Founder. Could this entire podcast be a rushed attempt to prove that she can still be relevant after her Spotify failure? And if that's the case, was this an intentional theft, or just another desperate move?
Well, they will not attend Invictus, because remember what Harry did to David Beckham. He had gone to Sydney for the Invictus Games and Harry snubbed him. It was terrible.
He asked Harry if he wanted him to go, and Harry said yes. So he got on the plane. It's a long journey, as well, you know. And when he got there, Harry wouldn't talk to him. He let him go all that way, and then wouldn't talk to him. And I think that's some incredibly bad behaviour. I think he was too scared maybe to say something, well, look, don't bother to come. But I think to let somebody do all that, go all that long journey, was a terrible mistake. And he
took his children. I mean, it was just appalling. It was an appalling way for Harry to behave. And meanwhile, Angela, we're getting to see a lovely side of Prince William this week again. So he loves his football, right? He absolutely loves football. In fact, look at this great selfie picture, Angela. I just thought this was so sweet. Someone at one of the games, and they see William there, and he's smiling along. He's loving it. He just feels very comfortable. And then you've got this front page of the Sun newspaper, Angela, where he's sat down with the Sun, really opened up about his love of football. And there's a very fun video with one of the big England stars where he's joking about, well, he's having to choose between which footballer he likes the best. And it's just a lovely, fun side of William, which I thought we'd have a watch of, and then I'd get your reaction.
Lahore, Gary Neville. Agbonlahor. That's easy, that's too easy.
Gabby Agbonlahor, Tyrone Mings.
Ah, you.
Oh, yes!
It's gotta be.
I knew I'd
I
get
can't
an
do that
answer in
with you
this.
here. Come on.
Tyrone Mings or Rio Ferdinand?
Rio's gonna kill me. Tyrone.
Let's carry this on. Let's carry this on.
I've got to make this worth your while as well.
Tyrone Mings or Ronaldinho?
Oh, sorry, Ronaldinho.
Well,
It's gotta be.
it was good while it lasted. Ronaldinho or Zinedine Zidane?
Oh, Zidane.
Zinedine Zidane or David Beckham?
God, that's gonna hurt. Bex, I think just.
What made you just give it to Bex over Zinedine Zidane?
Who's more likely to see it?
Yes, that's also in the back of my mind. I think Bex might kill me if I don't say him. Maybe longevity. I feel like Bex had a slightly longer career than Zidane, that's probably it.
David Beckham or R9?
R9.
R9 or Lionel Messi?
Oh, these are really tricky ones. Messi.
Messi or Ronaldo?
I've got to go Messi. He's won a World Cup. That's literally the only thing. That was nerve-wracking, but not too bad.
That was actually really tough. Think of a few on the way home.
I will, that's it. Why did I say that?
Oh, it was great, wasn't it, Angela? He loves his football. William, true
Yeah.
fan.
I read all that through, which is rare for me to do about it, but I loved the way he responded. You know, he was roaring with laughter. He wasn't just laughing to be polite, and he was relaxed. I mean, you can't compare this with the William a few years ago, who was, before he really got to be a father, that he was very tense, and you'd never be laughing like that. He might not even do that sort of guessing game, but he's enjoying his life, and I think that Catherine being much better for the moment anyway, and hopefully for forever, that he feels so happy and relaxed and enjoying life, and it's lovely, absolutely lovely to see. And he did say, which was very sweet, that he will never try to make any of the children, that includes Charlotte, to follow a particular game by anybody. He wants them just to choose themselves, but they jolly well better do the one that he really likes. It was very sweet. It's very touching. He's a family man, and you see him much better and happier.
Let's not forget. In 2022, Meghan and Harry's Netflix docuseries was released to huge initial viewership numbers, but quickly collapsed in popularity. Netflix scrapped Meghan's animated series, Pearl, before it even launched. Harry's Heart of Invictus barely made a dent in viewership. And recent reports suggest that Netflix has reduced the couple's upcoming projects. So, ask yourself, if Spotify dropped them, and Netflix is scaling back, what does that say about Meghan's future in Hollywood? Is Meghan launching Confessions of a Female Founder simply to prove she can still pull in an audience? And most importantly, if this podcast flops, does Meghan's career in Hollywood officially end? According to industry insiders, many executives see Meghan and Harry as damaged brands. One anonymous producer told The Sun, Hollywood was excited for Meghan at first, but now she's viewed as a headache. Too much drama, not enough content. This might explain why no major celebrities have defended Meghan in this latest scandal, a stark contrast to the Hollywood support she once had. Now, let's go even deeper. Think about the timing of this podcast launch. Meghan announces Confessions of a Female Founder just as her public image is weakening. She chooses a name that already exists, either because she didn't check, or because she thought no one would notice. And now, rather than addressing the controversy, her team is staying silent. What does that sound like? A calculated PR move. What if Meghan knew that launching a podcast under this name would cause controversy? What if her real goal wasn't to create a hit show, but to get her name back in the headlines, no matter the cost? After all, controversy gets clicks. Clicks get sponsors. Sponsors mean money. If this is true, then Meghan isn't just copying ideas. She's using the outrage to keep herself relevant. Could this be the last desperate move of a failing celebrity? Before you go anywhere, we have one last explosive theory. Insiders claim Meghan and Harry could be trying to get back in the royal family's good graces. Could this podcast be a stepping stone for a rebrand? And is this the real reason King Charles is keeping his distance? The answers might surprise you, so stick around for the final chapter of our investigation. Meghan Markle is at a crossroads. She's no longer the fresh-faced Hollywood darling. She's no longer the royal rebel who could do no wrong. And with every failed deal, every copied idea, and every public backlash, the cracks in her carefully curated image are becoming impossible to ignore. So what happens next? If Meghan doubles down and refuses to acknowledge the controversy, it will only fuel the perception that she's out of touch and unoriginal. If she issues an apology or clarification, it could be seen as damage control, but it might not be enough to win back credibility. And if this podcast flops, if the audience rejects it the same way they rejected archetypes, this could mark the official end of Meghan Markle as a serious media figure. If there's one thing history has shown us, it's this: Hollywood may love a comeback story, but it has no patience for grifters. And as the evidence piles up, Meghan Markle is dangerously close to being labeled as just that. So the question remains: is this just another Meghan Markle controversy? Or is this the beginning of her downfall? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain: the world will be watching.